So I'll be talking on the management of traumatic cataract with secondary IOL implantation and a little bit about muscle trauma. So we all know that the anterior segment, which is traumatized, poses a lot of challenge for the preoperative evaluation as well as the management of the trauma, and also you might have surprises intraoperatively if you do not know the extent of trauma and if you don't have a proper planning of surgery. So a traumatic cataract can occur from a serious penetrating trauma, or it can be following a blunt injury, or if it's associated with posterior segment injury, it might need a posterior segment or a vitreoretinal intervention either to proceed your traumatic cataract surgery or to follow up, or sometimes it can concurrently happen with your traumatic cataract surgery. Proper careful preoperative evaluation is a must because you need to understand the complete anatomy of the disrupted ocular structures. This will help you in the decision making, and the main goal is to clearly have an idea about the nature of injury and the extent of injury, and to know the integrity of the posterior capsule so that you can plan your surgery. This will help in reducing the tension of the surgeon and also to reduce intraoperative surprises. And sometimes when you have a proper evaluation and management, you can have extra devices. Suppose you want to have implants, if you want to have capsule tension rings, or you might want to have a Prolen suture. So if you have a preoperative planning, you do not have to run in the OR. You can have all your gadgets necessary when you're doing a surgery. This will help you to have a successful outcome for the patient. And again, this is also very important to know the nature of injury, the force and mechanism, again to judge the amount of injury in the lens. Presence of ocular perforation, sometimes you might have an intraocular foreign body, sometimes an intralenticular foreign body might be there. And also the duration of surgery is very important. And immediate measures, you need to treat them with broad spectrum systemic antibiotics in case of penetrating injuries. If there is an associated glaucoma, sometimes a hyphema in the eye or sometimes a ruptured anterior lens capsule matter can increase intraocular pressure, so you need to pay attention to that. And then you should give hemostatic agents for hyphema and anti-inflammatory agents to reduce the inflammation so that you won't have any post-operative problems. And more important is the counseling and discussion with the patient. You need to give a chair time with the patient so that you can explain to them what is to be expected. And also sometimes you have to tell them that it is a stage-wise procedure. It cannot be done. Sometimes depending upon the injury, you do the cataract aspiration, then later on plan for a IOL implantation. So this is very important to the patient. So when you see a patient like this with a localized tear here, you have to repair the corneal wound first. Sometimes you can wait for the inflammation to subside, and the traumatic cataract aspiration can be done at a later date. Another important thing is when you have a tear like this, a small tear, try not to aspirate if there is associated cataract, try not to aspirate the cortical matter through this. Rather, you can suture the wound and choose a site and go through clear tunnel or clear corneal tunnel to aspirate the cortical matter. Because if you manipulate, you go and aspirate the cortical matter. So once I noticed there was a posterior plaque. So I tried to place the lens. You can see the fibrosed anterior capsule here. I tried to cut with the Vanas and remove it. And always gently, don't pull it, just try to peel it your direction and then try to remove the plaque. So this is how the plaque is removed. I was not very sure about the extent of the posterior capsular dehiscence. So as a pediatric surgeon, pediatric ophthalmologist, I always put the lens into my PTC, so that's what I attended this patient as well. So after you remove the plaque, you do the posterior capsular excess and the anterior vitrectomy. The patient here like this, you can see here the tear in the lens. You try to do a rhexis, try to avoid the motion and try to complete the rhexis, aspirate the cortex. Here you are not very sure about the integrity of the posterior capsule, but I was lucky there was not a big tear posteriorly. So the cortex was aspirated. This patient was a free patient, so we put a rigid lens. I'm trying to clean up and extend the rhexis a little bit. So rigid lens was placed in the bag. You can see the margins of the anterior capsule. This is the old traumatic patient with an absorbing lens. You can see the Schomburgk's ring, which is trying to be removed. then you do a visco expression of the artery cataract. So similarly, there is a posterior plaque which can be gently removed, and part of it is fibrosed and attached to the posterior capsule, which was cut with the vanas and removed. Lens was placed, and this PC fibrosis you can do with a vitrector, a posterior capsulotomy, and a anti-vitrectomy to clear the visual axis. So the use of capsule tension rings in subluxated cataracts, you try to do a small rhexis, a gentle hydrodissection, try to implant the CTR in the back, and you can either use a CTR or even small implants depending upon the extent of dialysis. So this is a patient here with a hydrodialysis. You can see here, there is hydrodialysis. Also, if you see, this is the lens margin. There also is zonodialysis which is involved. So we use the glue to stain, and then we try to attempt to do a rhexis. Because we have to put a CTR, you need to have a good rhexis, otherwise no point in using a CTR. And there's a dialysis here, as we see. So the cortex was aspirated, and I'm using the CTR here. I think you should watch here how the bag gets extended. See here. So you put the CTR, see here, it gets extended. So then you put the intraocular lens, and then you can fix the iris. Then you need to release the synechiae and clear the visual axis. So then subluxated lens is another problem we encounter in trauma. So subluxated lens, you have a lot of options. You have the modified CPR with the Sionis ring. So this is a patient where we did a subluxated lens which had a Sionis ring implanted. You see the cross subluxation here. So we attempt to make a small rhexis and then use the iris scoops to stretch the bag. This is the Sionis ring. There's an extra. You can either have one eyelet or two eyelets. This is me. I did one eyelid because of the cross subluxation here. I thought if you just fix it here, it should be sufficient. So this is after you pass a Tollin suture, tie the knot over this eyelet here, and then you introduce the Sionis ring into the bag. After you introduce it to the bag, you pass a 20-stage needle, try to pass the Tollin suture, bring it out to the scleral flap here. Then you place the lens and tie the knot and pull it tight so that even later on there's decentration, the lens will still be in the visual axis. So secondary IOL option, we all know that it's an effective optical modality for managing pediatric myopia and also secondary IOL options following traumatic cataract. It is an additional surgical procedure, and a lot of other steps are involved like posterior synecholysis, anterior vitrectomy, pupilloplasty and membraectomy, etc. And secondary IOL options could be in the sulcus, or you can also think of scleral fixated iris suture IOLs, but I'm not going to the details of those. This is another video of so you can see all the corneal trauma. This is secondary effect. The corneal trauma has been fixed, and we see all the sutures. We normally, the duration depends upon the age of the patient. Very young child, then we would take it immediately for the risk of amblyopia. But then older patient, if the wound heals well and the time of suture removal, we do it because if it means that we general anesthesia, then we do the suture removal and plan the secondary implant at the same time. So you can see all the adhesions. So synecholysis is being attempted. Then wound extended. A 3-piece lens because we are placing it in the sulcus. And then you need to clear the visual axis after this. Try to release all the synechiae, clear the visual axis. I'm trying to make a small pupilloplasty there because the scarring, if you can see, I made a small sphincterotomy kind of thing so that I can clear the visual axis. It was so thick and fibrous, it could not be cut with a retractor. So using a 1/2 to cut the membrane. And then you do a vitrectomy to clear the visual axis. Now you see a clear visual axis. And then after you close the wound, the sutures can be removed, the corneal sutures. So coming to the muscle trauma, this is a patient here with eyelid laceration with trauma to the superior rectus muscle. If you look here, the child is trying to elevate, but then the elevation is restricted, the eye is in hypotropia and primary position. And sometimes fracture floor of the orbit can have the entrapment of inferior rectus, and this is the patient which has an elevation restriction following a lower fracture of the orbit. A post-action test would give you an idea if there's an entrapment, or you can do an imaging to find out if the muscle is entrapped. This is an interesting patient who presented to us like this. This patient had an injury, and this was the muscle which was lying, and it was superior oblique muscle. This was the pre-op evaluation. We had lid edema like this muscle, little bit of hypertropia. Otherwise, all the other ocular movements were normal. And the fundus did not show any torsion. The pressures were normal. The right eye was within normal limits. So this patient was taken up for surgery. We did, there was a 12 mm conjunctival tear which was superior to the limbus. So we saw the prolapsed tendon, the distal tendon of the superior oblique. We tried to reattach it, but we could not. It was, it was completely hanging out. So we went out and excised near the medial border of superior rectus, and conjunctiva was closed with non-absorbed suture. And this was day 1. He had good vision. The head tilt to right as pre-operative, but very minimal tilt, not much. And this is how we looked post-operatively. Fairly straight, and this was taken day 15. He was very comfortable, no diplopia. And we reviewed him for 6 months and no muscle sequelae seen. In fact, we thought he would need a ipsilateral inferior oblique recession if there's any overaction which develops. But he was completely fine, and he also did not develop any other Brown syndrome due to fibrosis or restriction. And this is another patient who came to us following injury, presented with diplopia with abduction deficit. This was a 6th nerve palsy. So this is the extraocular movements. You can see this abduction is restricted. All the other movements are normal, and the post-action test was positive for medial rectus contraction in the same eye. So he underwent a medial rectus recession with superior rectus and inferior rectus transposition to lateral rectus to improve the abduction. But what happened was day 1, his visual acuity dropped down to 612, and this is how we looked. You can see the pupil was vertically oval. We had dealt with 3 recti muscles, but in addition, what we did was we did a Foster's augmentation to enhance the muscle action, the transposition. So this was what we had. So he was diagnosed as a case of anterior segment ischemia. So he was treated with steroids orally, and this is his poster photograph. If you see that primary gaze, the lesion was severe. He's looking almost orthophoric. Though there is not much of an improvement in abduction, it's better than before. It's at least going away from the midline. So eye muscle trauma, mainly sepsis due to isolated extraocular muscle rupture, is very rare, and the order of involvement, usually the medial rectus is very commonly injured, followed by inferior rectus, superior rectus, and lateral rectus is very uncommon. In case of suspected extraocular muscle rupture, orbital imaging is a must. It will give you an idea, especially when you are planning to explore surgically. An MRI is mandatory, and prognosis is usually better in patients having partial extraocular muscle damage, and sometimes treatment options should be evaluated and customized based on the patient's need. Thank you.